What's up, folks? Tony here with Play by Play U, and welcome to another edition of the PXPU podcast, where every Thursday we talk to someone who's got the knowledge, the information, the education, and the wisdom that you need in order to grow to be the best you can while calling the sports that you love. I'm the voice of the Washington Huskies, and this podcast is a part of Play by Play University, where I'm making it my mission to create the best, most insightful, helpful, instructional, educational content on the internet to help anybody that wants to become a play-by-play announcer, a color analyst, or a sideline reporter. I need a few things from you to keep this project going. First, make sure you subscribe online at this website right here, playbyplayu.substack.com. You could just go to playbyplay.u.com and subscribe for free. There's a lot of free content, including this podcast, that will come straight to your inbox. But also for just $5.99 a month, you're going to get access to all sorts of incredible things like this list of lessons that I've put together on here. This is a great start for you, not just in the skill that you need to build in order to have a successful career, but also the moves you have to make in order to build your career as well. We've got all our list of archived guests up here. We've got prep tutorials on how to automate your spotting boards. This is super cool. And I'm on lesson, 34 right now. I think 34 is already done. 35 is coming up this weekend. So make sure you check all this information out. Playbyplay.u.com for about a cup of coffee a month, which is about as good of a deal as you're going to find for actually action items, instructional content on the internet that's going to help you with your career. Okay, our podcast guest today is Alexis Alfaro. He's my cousin-in-law. He's my wife's cousin, but also he's a professional opera singer and a professional rugby referee. So this guy knows about sports and is around the game a lot. He knows about high performers, and he's a high performer himself, not just as a referee, but a dude that can sing opera, which is like one of the hardest things to sing. And you've got to have your voice dialed if you're going to be a skilled opera performer. So what does Alexis do in order to get the most out of his instrument? And it's not just about doing a few warm-ups once in a while, but it's about doing these things and repeating them every single day. And it's not just your voice, it's your entire body, because your vocal cords are a part of your body, and how your whole body works together. That's going to be big in trying to maximize your voice as your instrument. I hear it from people all the time. I wish my voice was a little bit better of a broadcasting voice. Well, you can't control the starting point of your voice, but you can control how you work on it, how you use it, and how your voice matures and grows over the course of your career. And Alexis is going to talk to us about that. So if you want some incredible wisdom like the stuff that Alexis is going to talk to us about today, first, just subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. That helps immensely. Also, subscribe. You can start out for free at playbyplayu.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is Alexis Alfaro. Okay, we're going to keep it in the family today. Is cousin-in-law even a phrase that gets used?
I like cuz.
I mean, you are my cuz.
Yeah.
Alexis Alfaro has a really cool combination of two incredible skill sets that he's worked on for a really long time. And it's a unique combo of a way to make a living. A professional opera singer and a professional high-level rugby referee. And we're going to have him on today to talk about both, because I think both are going to have benefit to our broadcast at Play by Play University, to our audience, rather. People need to know how to use their instrument, their voice, because that is an enormous part of what you do when you're broadcasting. And then also, if you're broadcasting play-by-play of games, you're going to have to talk about the way the game's officiated. And you're probably it would help to understand what a referee is thinking as all that goes on. So, Alexis, welcome. Thanks for the time. This is fun.
Cousin, thank you for having me. This is it's really cool that we get to come together, because I know we've had these conversations over the years, just in car rides. You drop me off at the airport after a visit, stuff like that, and they're always beneficial to both of us. So I hope that, this conversation can help a broader audience as well. So thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man, this is going to be fun. So let's start with your opera career. When did you start going from singing for fun, just because you loved it, And I'm sure people always told you growing up, wow, you got a great voice. You can really sing. When did you make the leap from that to I need to actually start studying this so that I can take my game to the next level?
Yeah, I know like for sure since childhood, since like I can remember, I've always loved singing and loved doing it, going to churches, hearing concerts, listening to music. My parents got me piano lessons, so I just always had this very strong understanding and passion for music, and always in my mind had an idea like I would love to do this if I could. And then through the years, working with different teachers, always being encouraged positively, hearing how my voice developed, I want to say 2012 was like the moment that I said, you know what, like I'm going for it. Like I've gotten the training. At that point, I had been several years out of college after, studying vocal performance, still working, semi-professionally, but saying like I can do this. And since then, I would say it's been a positive trend, and I can comfortably say now, like, yeah, I'm like a working opera professional, and very happy to be doing it.
Yeah. So did you went to KU, right?
I went to USD for undergrad, and then KU for my master's.
Okay, got it. So what's the first thing you learn
Rock
at
chalk.
USD? Yeah, right. Rock Chalk, right? I mean, Rock
Yeah.
Chalk KU, man, those basketball games at Allen Fieldhouse or something else. That's a
Uh,
that's a bucket list. You got to experience that sometime in your life if you haven't yet, to anybody listening. But I got to say, so as you start at USD, vocal performance, like what's the very first thing you learn when they're teaching you how to use your voice?
Well, I would say, okay, let me get you before that because I want to say that since elementary school, I've been studying, like where we had a choir teacher, I
Mm.
went in and I sang. And she, at that moment, said, like, you have a good voice, you should be singing. And for males, especially a higher voice male, I'm a tenor, uh, they're sought after more. There's less of them. There's mostly baritones. Like you have an amazing baritone voice. Every time I hear you talk, I'm like, that's a golden voice right there.
Thanks, man.
But then, it is the training and the practice and studying music, learning languages that goes from there. So when you're saying what does it take, first it's musicianship if you want to, pursue it professionally. So it's learning how to read music, working with others in a choir setting. And for many years, I sang in choirs like all throughout San Diego, as well as regionally and nationally. And then when you get to college, to answer your question specifically, the training there, it's different everywhere. Like it's eclectic. Like there's no one set way where you can say like, well, if you do the A, B, C, and D, you will be a professional opera singer. Everyone's a thumbprint. Everyone's voice is different, similar to athletics. Like every athlete is different into how they're going to grow and interpret. What works for one person won't work for another. But there are fundamentals. And the fundamentals, even when you're not singing, are you have to be able to read music, you have to be able to play music, you have to be able to study music, you have to be able to have a good ear and harmonize with things. And then when you get into opera, you have to be able to study languages and know how to translate them, work on them, and prepare roles. So that is a basic fundamental thing, but I would say it comes down to musicianship at the very beginning and a love for it because when the pressure's on, it's not as enjoyable unless you have really studied.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see a lot of overlaps there. And what I'm kind of curious is like, okay, so what are some of the early things you learn about how to take care of your instrument? Because I mean, your voice is obviously it's what singing and all these things, all these variables, it's part of the equation, right? But like you need your pipes to be taken care of the best you possibly can in order for you to be able to perform night after night. And like there are guys, I'll tell you from a broadcast perspective, like I'm a bit of a yeller. Well,
Mm.
that can make it difficult for me come tournament time if we have four games in a row because I start to lose my voice over time, right? So, like, if I'm yelling from here instead of projecting from my diaphragm whenever a play gets loud or exciting, I can strain and that becomes an issue. So, like, what are some of the ways you've learned over the years to take care of your voice?
Yeah, and I would say, there's a spectrum of it. Like a broadcaster or professional opera singer, there's more to do. And then anybody who just wants to learn a little bit about the voice and understand the anatomy of it and how it's created and the best practices. So I'll start on that end where from a normal perspective, like everyone is gifted with two vocal cords and everyone has a voice and everyone can train to be better. Just not even just a better talker. And if I'm talking for 4 days straight, or if I'm giving a presentation, how do I manage that? What I think of, and you already mentioned one of them, is it all begins with support. So not straining and talking on the voice up here, and over time, this will ruin your voice. But one, it's posture,
Mm,
like creating an alignment that allows you the air to just flow. Two is relaxation in the jaw, tongue, throat area. There's thousands of muscles, and all you're trying to do is get them to relax and get out of the way of the air hitting the cords and then hitting the resonance of your face and creating a sound. And so I always hear it's very easy to hear in your voice, where it's like it's always just in a right aligned place. Like every time you hear you speaking voice, it's like, oh, that's a nice tone and it's easy. But then when the pressure of a game's on, when the excitement of a game's on, when you're going for 4 days, it's like having to remember those fundamentals and get into the other end of the spectrum. There are exercises you can do. There's awareness you can have in your posture and your alignment in how to relax these areas and how to support yourself better. And then it's like an athlete, it's preparing for a season. Like I know right now I'm going into from now until June, I'm singing in 3 operas, have like several concerts, and so it's pacing yourself. It's knowing, okay,
mm.
you're getting to these performance states, and that's when you have to be your best and your freshest. And so I'll put in a lot of heavy work now in the singing and in the training, tax my voice a little, let it rest, give it some time off, and then come back like prepared. You do like your preseason training, and then you do your in-season training, and then all that leads to shining on the day that you need to, or the days that you need to, when it comes to performances.
Okay, let's start with exercises. You said there
Mhm.
are exercises that people can do to kind of maximize what they've got to work with. What are some of those?
It all starts with the breath. So again, it's awareness, and then everyone's a different thumbprint. So everything I say, it's like you just have to understand the awareness of it. To give a simple example, like a basic exercise when you're waking up, or when let's say you have a performance, you breathe in, hold it, breathe out, and just feel how that works for you. And create more awareness of, okay, my ribs are opening, my throat is opening, my breath is being taken in through my nose and through my mouth, and you can continue to get more and more detailed and minute with that, and you practice that ahead of time, because when you're in performance, you're not thinking like, well, make sure I do all these little things right.
Right.
It's a
Hmm.
daily practice of breathing, supporting, posture, alignment. You could do that, like, and that's great. Like you've already like succeeded, and you'll improve your voice by 20%. I was just reading a article about just by like if your chin's down, and if you raise it like just that much, it creates 20% more space in your throat, like just
Wow.
anatomically. So that gives you more space for air to flow and less stress on your muscles having to let the air through.
So interesting. You know, I've heard people talk about that just as a general healthy posture to like make you more confident in life. I can't remember where I've heard it from, but people like the Tony Robbins type people, they'll say just stand in front of a mirror with your chest out, with kind of the Superman pose, like chin up, chest out, and your make fists and like put them on your hips and just have that victorious posture.
Mhm.
And that's just going to help you mentally. Just hold that for 2 minutes a day in the morning. And now like, I'm hearing you because I'm someone who's always looking down at my notes. But like even what I just did
Mhm.
right there, like I can hear how my voice changes when I look down, right? And that can make a really big difference because I've got all these notes down in front of me. um and here I'm in the football booth right now. The field is far below me right now, so I have to
That's
look
awesome.
down in order to see it. But at the same time, you know trying to be aware of your body posture and how all that does it all has incremental and compounding influences on your voice, it sounds like.
Yeah, and so that from a singing perspective, you want to coach from an athletic perspective. When it comes to the fundamentals, you want to be working with a coach just to give you those awarenesses. Then it's your responsibility to find your optimal places because everyone's going to be a little bit different into how they're aligned and what they want to do. When I'm practicing, I'm usually trying to do it standing up or sitting in a very good posture. And I get the same thing where sometimes I'll be staring down at my music while I'm singing and then realizing like, that's that if I train this way continuously, I'm going to develop a habit that is going to decrease my capacity to give the optimal sound.
Hmm.
Uh, and then on the other end of it, like I said, I kind of am going from this like normal everyday things you could do just if you want to be more aware, and then things you do as a professional. Where as a professional, okay, you've gained that awareness, you've practiced for several years, you understand how your body aligns, you understand your perfect posture. Um, we can talk about bowel alignment, we can talk about resonant alignment, we can talk about relaxing the throat, tongue, and jaw, and those are all individual lessons that like all those are chapters in themselves, like and you could spend a year on each one, and then you're constantly growing on every one, and in each one as you grow, like every day your capacity gets a little bit better, every year it gets a little bit better. You're trying to go to the extremes of what you're capable of,
Yes.
like your highest note at your most, level 11, and realizing, okay, I can do that once, but am I going to be able to do that 4 times in a row? Or do I give, 80%? Or am I sick on the day? And, just kind of all these balances. And again, these are things you think about in the practice room and daily training, because on a day of a performance, whether it's refereeing or singing, I'm not trying to go like, well, make sure you do all these little details. I'm just letting it flow and seeing what happens on the day, and giving myself to the music, or letting the game happen, and hopefully everything goes well.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Like, I mean, it's so important from a broadcast perspective to just be in the present moment. And the more your brain is cluttered with trying to have all these boxes you're checking, I need to be doing this. Like, if you're focused on all that stuff, that's your call is going to suffer. So it does have to become second nature. It seems like the only way it can become second nature is by making daily habits and practices out of it. So what are some of those daily ones? Like you already talked about, okay, there's the breathing one, which sounds meditative to me a little bit. Like it's very similar to meditation. Trying to empty your brain so like you can really focus on your breathing and be aware of where is the air coming in, how does all of this work together. So there's the breathing part. Then what are some of the other exercises?
Well, once you feel comfortable with your breath and posture, like those are the two main things: breath and posture, and you can work on that forever. Then for me, I would go into relaxation of the throat, jaw, and tongue.
Hmm.
And usually that involves massage. So you'll just every day you kind of check in, you rub your face, you go like, where are the sore spots? Where's the tension? Where in my singing have things been building up? Like somewhere in the neck, you feel your Adam's apple. You understand the anatomy of your larynx. Like you have to look at like anatomy pictures. You can look at MRIs on YouTube of singers singing and how a relaxed sound looks and how a tight sound looks. And then you just have to incorporate that into like your physical instrument. One of the difficult things about singing is that it's all internal. So it's a feeling a lot of times. And I
Yes.
can't and like I said, it's a thumbprint where it's like the feeling that I get, the sensation I get when I'm making a good sound could be completely different from what you're making when you get a good sound. So you have to be aware of that for yourself. So massaging, touching while I'm talking, I can feel the vibration. I can feel, is there tension in my vibration right now? Am I holding it? Or am I allowing it to be free and open and resonant without any tension? Am I in good posture? Like just by raising up that little bit much, I can feel a slight difference. And you're looking for those 1% gains, even less than 1%. And there's two things I'll say. You said it's a meditative state. uh, Conductors in orchestras are known to live longer because they always have a good posture and they're expanding their chest, so their heart gets more opportunity to pump and
Hmm.
grow. So they're known to have great cardiovascular work because every day they're doing this and they're like opening their body and they're standing tall so that an 80-person orchestra can see them. And two, when it comes to daily habits, one of my teachers, one of my great teachers, Dr. John Craig Johnson, look him up. You can get lessons from him if you want. He would always say, amateur practices until they get it right. A professional practices until they can't get it wrong. And the point being is that it has to become muscle memory. And so these awarenesses, like I can talk about them, but you have to practice them, you have to do them, you have to find it in yourself. So massage, relaxing, and then, I think that's enough. But the next steps would be making sounds and seeing how they're created and understanding how they're created with your tongue, with your lips, with your airflow, with your resonant space, um, and then going from there.
So I think what's really interesting is you're talking about these 1 and 2% gains, these small little improvements, but then the compound effect that they have is the next thing you know, you're able to sing beautiful opera that just like moves people to tears and will like absolutely like have this disproportionate effect once you make all these little changes over and over and over again. I know a lot of broadcasters that they'll say to me, I wish I had a better voice. I wish I had a better voice. And if I had a better voice, I feel like, I could be doing this or that. But I think that I don't know how much people actually work on that part. And I don't know how much they realize that like some of the things that you do, they're not super hard to do. It's that you are unbelievably consistent with them. And I can say this from being family with you now. And there will be times that like we're just in the house together and you're walking from one room to another and you're just going, or you're just going, like getting the kind of the tension out of the lips or whatever. I mean, you are unbelievably consistent with these things, and I think it's paid off with you having a professional career, which is amazing. And so I'm trying to think of like before I ask you for more of these sounds that you were talking about, what are some of the vocal and the sound exercises we can do? Um, I've noticed something just this past year about myself. I have struggled for a long time with just kind of feeling that tightness in my jaw, in kind of my gums. My tongue feels like it's maybe like 2% swollen or something. I've noticed this more in basketball games than football games. And I've been like, what the heck? Why? And I think I figured it out this year. On a football game day, I'm working 11 or 12 hours and I'm walking all over the footprint of the entire stadium because I got to be down at our tailgate show and then I got to come up here and then I got to run this equipment over here and then I got to go to the locker room and then so like I walk 15,000 steps on a football game day and my body is loose. And then when I'm calling the game, I'm standing up. And so my posture's in alignment and I'm loose. It's a basketball game day, I'm in this cramped little space. I'm tight. I might not have been walking very much because I simply go to the arena. I set up in my little corner. I do the game. I'm sitting down, probably a little bit hunched over because we don't have a lot of spots. There's somebody sitting right behind me, so I can't stand up. And I'm like, wow, I really think that all of this is going into why my face and why my mouth just feels a little bit tighter for a basketball game than a football game. And so I suppose the way to combat that would be I gotta do some of these exercises during basketball season a little bit more.
Yeah, and you said like you made a very good point that opera singers know is that if you have good blood flow going through you, there's a singer named Lawrence Brownlee, and I've learned this just kind of naturally where it's like I'll in some cases I'll do a rugby game in the morning and then sing a concert in the afternoon. And I know my body is like much more open because I've just created more blood flow. And I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me on this, but I just have this sense where I've like torn my knee and I've recovered my knee, like a torn ACL, and a lot of it had to do with like the recovery is just getting blood flow to the ligaments, and the knee is a hard spot to get that to. It's the same. I think this is easier to get to, but it's blood flow to the ligaments that are loosening things up. And so if you are walking a lot, if you get a brisk little sweat going, And this is what Lawrence Brownlee will do. Like before he sings in a 3 hour opera, he'll be at the gym putting in some not super hard cardio, but cardio that gives you a sweat. And he's studying his score, and he'll post videos on that. And I agree, and I think he would agree, and most singers would agree that they do feel more warm. And you have to warm up. Like before an opera, there's a joke that lower voice guys, when they warm up, all they have to do is go like, "I'm ready." Yeah. Whereas a tenor, all I'm more aligned, but when I was younger, I would give like it's a whole day process. Is when I wake up, I understand how my voice feels to, the 8 o'clock performance time. But and you just kind of slowly get yourself to that point to be ready for it. But ultimately in the hour before the show, you're putting in I'm stretching, I'm aligning, I'm singing through scales, I'm pushing, myself. Like if my highest note in the opera is here, I'm trying to sing up to here just so I know I have the space to
Mm.
create that. So I don't know, that like blood flow and preparation will definitely get you going for a better broadcast and feeling more loose and ready.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think there's a lot of people that maybe that they'll feel silly about doing a certain thing or whatever. But I know, for instance, I'll walk into an arena that's empty two
Hmm.
hours before a basketball game, and then I'm trying to test out the mics, and I'm trying to test, and so like when the arena's buzzing and there's 10,000 people in it, and the score is 75-75, and someone's got the ball with 10 seconds left and they're putting up that shot to try to win the game, I might have to go, "Bam, hits it at the buzzer," right? Like I got to do that. But like, how can I do that well in the moment if I haven't practiced that ahead of time? And so I'm going to have to maybe like try that in a quiet arena or before I get to the arena or something to just make sure that like that's not the first time that day that I've gotten to that level. Because what you're telling me is you go above the level that you know you're going to need to get to during your performance as you're warming up.
And just funny little singer things, because you say you hear me like humming around, and we can get into those type of exercises and what I'm doing. It's become Pavlovian for me. I've studied it
Mm.
like all my life, where people are like, oh, that's a nice sound, and I'm kind of like, I didn't, I'm not trying to, it just happened. But what I just noticed when you say bam, so like you said bam bam, that's probably like a ah, that's like an E, like the note E. So I would just know in a scale, I got to sing, your voice naturally kind of peaks right there, E. And when I hear broadcasters, sometimes when I hear that, like, let's get ready to rumble, or like, I forget, Golden State has a broadcaster that's at different notes, like, let's get ready rumbles like at a D. You might have hit an E. I feel like I've heard broadcasters usually sit between an F, and this is like the fourth octave on the scale. So there's like an actual ring to that sound, and you can hear the
Mm.
note that they're singing. So I would work on scales, right? Just be like and then at some point you'll see like, is it getting tight? Am I open for that? And you can just keep on kind of climbing the level and creating more space so that in the moment it's not going to bother you. You
Yeah.
have it.
It's funny because I've kind of had this thing, which is a very silly thing, but I've always kind of wanted to sing the national anthem before a game, which
Yeah.
I probably could by just like walking over to the athletics office and saying like, "Hey, can I do the national anthem before a game?" And they'd probably be like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead," Um, but then like as I in my own time kind of practice singing that or whatever, I don't even know, like it varies from day to day what note I would even start on. And
Yeah.
so what key I would sing it in, right? And I think that there's kind of like having an awareness of that's an interesting song because if you start too high or you start too low, it could bite you later on down in the song, right? So
It's
you
not
need
an
to
easy
know
song to
where to
sing.
start.
Yeah. It's not easy to sing.
No, not at all. So all of that sort of matters. So, okay, you're talking about doing scales, trying to get a sense for what your high end is, what your low end is. Um,
Right.
what else? I want to ask specifically about this one. You had one that was kind of like a throat opening exercise where you kind of made this motion
Mhm.
and it was kind of like like trying to get your like throat to open up a little bit. Like you could do infinitely better than me,
Mhm.
and explain it way better. So tell me, what are you doing there to get your throat to open up?
It's all exploration, right? And then
Okay.
and understanding. So what I like to tell people, like when I'm working with beginning level students, is do it the worst you can. Like try to cut everything off, try to not let the air come through and feel the tension around your voice.
Hmm.
And then from there, open it up. And humming is always a great opportunity to relax the voice. It's like a yawn, like feel a yawn in your voice, like a And what a lot of people, when they're thinking of the voice, they're thinking of, I don't know what they're thinking of, but it's like it naturally happens or it just comes out and I'm just trying and they don't understand that there's resonant space in the back of the throat. There's resonant space right here. There's resonant space in the neck. And so you can like create a sound like that. And then so I would start on humming, like just gentle hum, and make sure everything's relaxed. And then turn it into vowels, like ooh. And there's always a vowel or two that some are that you love doing. Like I love an ah vowel. I can do all day, and I don't like an e vowel, and I can feel the tension in it. So I have
Hmm.
to understand where the tension is and then release that tension. And it's a feeling that you get. And also you can hear it in the ear. Like you'll hear, as you just did, a difference between like if I'm okay, I'll say put the sound in the back of the throat. Like make it stuck in your throat and it's not coming out. So it's like oh, uh, uh, and you can feel some openness that has pros and cons. And then like put the sound in the middle of your voice, like so from a deep to a and now put the sound way too forward, like in your nose. Huh, huh, huh. And the point is from what you're trying to do is find that where that airflow goes and then balance out the sound to go like and then you get a warm nice sound, but that takes time to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really interesting. So there's that to kind of open up the throat. Then what are you doing with your lips as you're kind of trying to like you're doing this humming thing where you're like that. Like tell me a little
Some
bit of
people
what's going
can't
on
do
there.
that. Like, okay, lip trills, tongue trills, what is it? That's a lip trill, a tongue trill.
So that's like kind of like a Hispanic R sound, like a like that. Okay.
And this is called a raspberry, like a.
Okay.
These things, people like, if you just check all those three, some people will be like, I can't. Like, I'm like, or like,
Mm.
I can't roll my R. I was like, and that usually is because there's some type of tension in your tongue, in your jaw, in your throat that's not allowing you to be relaxed and just make these sounds. So it's like, if you can just do that, like just relax and feel for again, it starts from the breath flow. So it's like get a good breath, get good posture, and then you can do scales, you can do slides, and the point is just to feel that your voice can do anything it wants and it's relaxed while doing it. And through these points, you'll feel airs and you'll understand like, oh, there's some kind of tension there. And then the point is you have to, that's the little 1% that you work on the day. Like, let me release that tension. And it
Yeah.
could be because you're tired, because you've been singing all day, because this, that, and the other thing. Or it could be because you're sounding great right now and everything's just aligned and just finding where you're at on the day because every day the voice is different.
Man, you just led me right to the next thing I wanted to ask about, which was how do you take care of you talked about seasons where you got to rest, where you're getting ready for a performance. And I don't know how many people I know who have said, "Well, it's the night before a big game. I'm on the road at City X, and we're going to go call a game here. And I know so and so, and we're going to go out." It's like, Okay, like you do you, that's fine. But like I'll be invited to a lot of donor events where there will be a donor dinner in a city and we're eating great steaks, the wine is flowing, all this stuff, and people will be like, Tony, come on, like, have a few drinks, whatever, like loosen up a little bit. But I know that if I have alcohol before a game, the night before a game, that my voice is going to suffer that next day. I just know it. And I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud about it. And I will occasionally have like a drink. But I also know that there's just a trade off. There's a price to be paid. Like my voice might be at 95% instead of 100% or something. And that might show up somewhere and it might not. I don't really know. But when you're trying to maximize what it is that you've got, this God-given tool, and you might feel a little insecure. You might feel like, oh, I don't have as good a voice as so and so. But like if you maximize what you got, you could use the absolute best of what you've got, and it could be a lot better than what you currently have. What are some of those things that you're doing? Because I know alcohol is one of them. I know another one is my voice sounds way different when I'm really tired. When I'm tired, it loses its deepness. I have this higher sounding voice. I don't know where that's coming from. What are the things that you, Alexis, that you do to take care of your voice?
Well, as you said, like there's no magic bullet. It's all very simple. Like one is preparation and practice. That's 20 years. So I know, so I can believe in myself to do it. That's all my life and being trained properly. So I know I have that. But then it's the simple things like, yeah, it's sleeping right, eating right, drinking lots of water. For me, I think sleep is the biggest one. And I would never, I mean, I have when I was younger for sure. Like I would drink all night and then sing a song or like go play a rugby game. And I got through it, but it's not ideal and it's not optimal. And then as you become a professional and you realize like I'm getting paid for this, and I'd want to and personally I want to have my best performance. So
Yeah, yeah,
what can I do to achieve that? And then not having to second guess myself like, well, if I could have sang better if I didn't drink last night, or if I got more sleep, or if I didn't do this. It's like, no, I cut all that out. It's like I just do what's right. And if I don't nail it, I'm kind to myself and I'll say like, how can I improve? How could I do better? And then the other side of it, as you were saying, it's like, yeah, the voice, no matter what, even if I did everything right, I might wake up, there might be smoke in the air, like there is in SoCal right now.
yeah, yeah.
And it just doesn't sit right. There's a little something in the air, you're a little off, maybe your allergies are picking up, maybe you get a little sick before a show. You have to believe in yourself and know that all the years of preparation, everything you're doing, like although in your mind, today I only was able to give 90%, I couldn't really push it. To the people out there, because of all the work you put in and because you can trust that you put in that work, uh, they might get 100%. In their mind, they're like, wow, that was amazing. Because your 90% is usually an untrained ear's 80 to 100%.
Hmm.
So don't doubt yourself, I guess, as long as you know you've put in the work. Because those doubts will creep in if I haven't put in the work and I'm singing and something goes off. I'm like, uh-oh. Uh-oh. But if I've done everything I can in my preparation, nothing worries me. It's just like I'm in the moment and I'm doing my best.
Oh, confidence is everything when you step up to perform. And that doesn't matter if it's, singing, if you're playing an instrument, if you're giving a public speech, if you're calling a game. I mean, confidence to me is like, it's like your confidence supplies a range of your possible performance. And you are not going to be any better than how confident you are. You might be worse. Like you could like have other factors that bring you down, but you're not going to be any better than how confident you are. So you have to have your confidence be as high as possible so that you have the highest ceiling possible of what your possible performance could be like. And I'm going to be most confident when I know I've put in the work and when I know I've done the right things. And so if I'm out, like when me and my wife, when we're, playing guitar and singing until midnight and all that stuff, that's a lot of fun. And we got to have nights like those. We absolutely do. But if I'm having a night like that the night before a game and I'm straining my voice to sing or, we're having a few drinks or whatever, that is going to lower my confidence. I mean, that just is. And so I think that stuff's really important. You talked about eating right. I'm curious, what is eating right in order to optimize your voice.
It's the same as athletic training. Like it's what proper nutrition helps. So, a perception and a fair perception is a lot of opera singers are bigger. You when you think of an opera singer, you don't think of like an athlete. You think of usually an obese person. Is that fair to say? Like,
There have been a few famous ones, so yeah, sure.
yeah. And so, uh, they've mastered their voice. Sometimes that obesity gives you a better awareness of like the pressure, the support that you're giving to your body, and you relax more here. So there's pros to that, but the con is that your career will suffer over time because as you're traveling, as you're eating wrong, as you continue to put on more weight, you become tired, you become more lethargic, and then it does lead to health problems. Your body gets sore, you can't move as well on stage, and so uh, it's I would say I've always known it because I've been an athlete as well. So I've learned about proper nutrition. I've learned, and you realize like if I make the decision to eat Jack in the Box the night before a game, or if I make a decision to eat like broccoli and a steak the night before a game, I can, what do you think is going to do better for you?
Right.
You know, which one's going to do better for you? And it's just good calories in, healthy nutrition. Everybody has a little bit something different that works for their body depending on what they're doing. Protein, uh, micro or micronutrients. Leafy greens, good fruits, a lot of water.
Hmm.
Simple. There's no magic bullet to it. It's like it's stuff everybody knows. And if you can do that in singing and in athletics, you're going to extend your career and your longevity. And when you have those bad days, because everybody does, you'll know that it wasn't because I ate Jack in the Box.
Yeah. I think there is and I think everybody learns their own body over time. There's some things that I've picked up on from a dietary perspective for me. I mean, look, I'm Italian. I love pasta. I love bread. I love all that stuff. If it's not super organic, one ingredient made in Italy, there's a chance that there's going to be some inflammatory things about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alcohol is inflammatory to your system. Like some dairy things, particularly sugar and dairy, like ice cream, inflammatory to your system. Are you going to be doomed to have a terrible broadcast the next day? No. But could you be 5% better if you avoided inflaming your nostrils, your skin, your throat, your pipes, your lungs, like just a little bit? Yeah, and like what might the payoff be of doing some of those things? So there are definitely some things I avoid and I stay away from the night before a performance. You brought up hydration.
Mm-hmm.
What's a good benchmark for proper hydration to be able to perform well?
I think that I forget what it is, but it's something that like ideally you want to be drinking your body weight in ounces, something
Hmm.
like that for sure, at least 8 glasses a day. And just get in the habit of staying hydrated and knowing that you're hydrated so that it's going back to what you just said, whether you hydrated or not, whether you drank alcohol or not, and you gave yourself that 5% or not, that you're just able to, at least for me, for my mentality, I know that I can't make an excuse. I don't want to have an excuse. I want to know, even if I have a bad performance, I want to know that I did everything right. And then I can figure out like it's easy to cop out and go like, well, the reason I didn't sing so well is because I had a couple drinks last night. I didn't get good sleep. I haven't been drinking water all week. I could solve that very easily
Hmm.
by doing it. And so I don't want to have that excuse for myself. Um, if something else happens and I have a bad performance, but I did everything right, I'll figure it out. But I don't want to leave it to those easy percentages that I could have cleared up. And yeah, I don't know. What I do is I go and chat GPT, and when I have to go into training sessions, I'll be like, tell me how many words I have to memorize a day. Tell me how many pages I have to memorize from now until May 1st. Tell me what proper eating is for water intake, calorie intake, plan me diets. And you can just read it all out. And then, I don't do it every day, but a week or two, I just kind of study it. I get into the habit of it. And then, for the next 6 months, I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability. You don't have to be 100% throughout all that, but if you can do that 80% of the time, 70% of the time, even over 50% of the time, I always say, like, then you are tipping the scales in your favor.
Well,
Um,
and if you're not doing it at all, just start doing it a little, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but start doing a
Experiment,
little and do
experiment.
a little bit more as time
Yeah.
goes on. Experiment, as you say, and I think the one thing with water is I find myself needing to like make sure that I have spots in the format and I know exactly where the restroom is because we don't have a ton of commercial breaks where I can run off and go take care of that. But I think, man, I mean, just how my mouth feels on a night where I don't have 40 ounces right next to me while I'm calling a basketball game. I mean, I'll probably have like 6 bottles of water next to me during a football game. I'll go through all of them, and then I gotta run at halftime. But like, I mean, I don't think I could do a broadcast without
Well,
a ton of water.
the same teacher though, Dr. John Craig Johnson would tell me because I used to have water like always like right before I perform and I take it on stage with me during concerts and he'd be like that doesn't help you. He's like the work you have to do with water is days before. Like
Yes, true.
and it's just a daily practice. So I can guarantee you there are within you know 30 feet of me there's like 4 water bottles around me where just I'm all it's just a habit.
Yeah, right.
It's just a habit. And then, not to get too grotesque, but uh, you can tell if you're hydrated or not by the color of your pee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if it's yellow, you need more water. If it's clear, you're good. And
Yep.
so I just try to keep your pee clear, and then you know you're hydrated. And everyone's a little bit different, but uh, nobody's ever said drinking a lot of water is a bad thing. If
Right.
anything, it's a good thing.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Okay, so you talked about some of the exercises above the neck. What are
Mhm.
some of the things you're paying attention to below the neck in order to get that posture right? You even said something about bowel alignment and other things along those lines. Like, what are you paying attention to, and what can someone listening to this podcast do?
Wait, did I hear you right? Did you say bow or vow?
Bowel. I think that's what you
Oh,
said
I meant
originally, right?
it was vow, like
Oh,
like
vowel alignment. Okay,
vow
got it.
alignment.
Okay, so I got it
But
wrong earlier.
if that's a funny point. Bow alignment. Okay, so let's just say. So when I've had the opportunity to study the Alexander technique with 3 different teachers through the years. All of them great. And Alexander technique is a posture awareness, and this helps singers a lot. It helps dancers a lot. I've also studied ballet. It's one of the things that when I was at KU and even before that, they encourage you, and I think being an athlete as well helps, but you just have to have good body movement because there's a lot of singers that can sing great, but then they get on stage and they only stand in one place. And when they're asked to do some movements, their voice gets out of whack because they don't feel
Mm,
comfortable moving around. Because they're good here, but if they got to go over there while singing, something gets misaligned. So the Alexander technique, please look it up. 3 practitioners. I can't remember the first lady, but I know the names are escaping me, but for sure one of them is Tasha Kuntz, and she studied with a lady named Kate, whose last name is escaping me. She's up in LA, and basically it's just these awarenesses that you walk around and you can feel, like, and you start with the awareness of like from your toes to the top of your head, from your spine aligning to your shoulders back, to your arms forward, to your chest up. And you kind of go in extremes because like your chest can go too far and then you're out of alignment. You kind of get a little rounded in your back and that's going to
yep.
cut off your thing. But then you just find the balance for yourself. And then at some point in maybe a half hour to an hour session of just going over all these little things like what do your toes feel like, what do your ankles feel like, and you can do that meditative awareness like where with Tasha before we start singing she'll be like, okay, close your eyes, you're standing there, start at your toes, feel the energy from the ground, feel the energy go up to your ankles, wiggle your toes, feel yourself moving. Now go to your shins, now go to your knees, now go to your thighs. You can get even more detailed than that. Now go to your bowels, now go to your liver, now open it up and just feel how much expansion you can have and how much alignment you can have. And just by doing that exercise, even if you don't know what you're doing, just by focusing on it for like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and just finding that posture, you'll improve at least 1%. You'll find a little bit more alignment. And then if you do that on a daily basis, or if you practice that like myself for over 20 years, you're able to just like be ready. You're able to go like, okay, I'm aligned. Like I'm ready to go. I have this little note in my practice notes above my piano. And one of them says like, I can be ready in 30, like a pizza in 30 minutes or less to sing world class.
Hmm.
And because I know how to align myself ready to go. Um, and so I hope that answers your question,
It
where it's like,
does.
it starts at the beginning of just a little bit of awareness, but then it can grow. It's a snowball effect. It's delayed gratification of like, I gained 1% on Monday. And then the next Monday, I gained another 1%. And then after 52 weeks or a year of studying it, or let's say you only did 30 weeks of study, you take some time off. You did 30 weeks, you didn't do 22 weeks of study, but those 30 weeks will improve you for the next year. And you just keep on going, you keep on going. And then 20 years later, you're like, hey, I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm getting a professional contract.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about your world to know, but I would presume that in opera, you're standing 100% of the time, right? Although there might be a situation where maybe you're down on a knee while you're singing or something like that. What are some what for broadcasters who are in a situation where they have to sit?
Yeah.
How do you maximize the posture for your vocal cords while needing to not be in that fully I can do whatever I want posture wise situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I'm thinking of alignment while I'm sitting, as I'm sitting right now, like I'm gonna lower my chair a little so that I can feel my feet press into the ground. Kind of, I can
Hmm.
have like if I need to stand up, I could without using any hands or anything. So that I'm just aligned there. Knees are over toes. Uh, femurs are relaxed. Hips and butt are you kind of like move them forward, move them back. Just a little bit of movement throughout. I think instead of like always staying in one position, like just kind of having micro movements, fidgeting really, I think keeps you open. Ideally, if I was a broadcaster, I'd want to be standing because
Yeah.
I feel like I'd have more alignment. And then taking breaks because you said like, well, I was kind of laughing because I was telling this story to a friend the other day. They were asking about like, well, what's opera all about? And I was saying like, you could be in a 3 hour opera and you're only in three scenes. So you might of that 3 hour opera, you're only singing for 30 minutes. You come on for 10 at the beginning, then you go to your dressing room, you're texting friends, you're looking at your music for the next scene, and then an hour later, you have your next 10 minutes, and then an hour later, you have your last 10 minutes. And so, but you better, when you show up to that stage, no excuses. Oh, I was sitting and texting, or I was sitting and studying my music and I got tight. It's like you just always have to make sure that you're in that optimal stage for at least those 3 hours. And then you can relax. But if I was a broadcaster, I'd be like, where's my optimal uh, alignment so that I'm giving myself another 5 to 20% of opportunity to just sound great and not get fatigued.
That's so cool, man. I could talk to you more and more and more about this, but before I let you go, I want to shift gears for a little bit into your time as a referee because I think um, there's there's so much that I don't think we really know or appreciate about how hard it is to be a referee. And I'm always curious to learn more about that. I don't really get a chance to talk to many of the referees, never in football, occasionally a little bit in basketball because of our proximity to them. If we're down on the ground and we'll get a chance to maybe, say hi to them. But what do people who are broadcasting games need to know about um, just what it is like to referee a big broadcast? Because remind me the leagues of you do rugby and you've done I think the highest levels of rugby in the United States, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm based out of Southern California, and so here I'm able to work in youth leagues, in high school leagues, in college, D1A, all the way to like D4. And then there's club leagues and men's semi-professional, and then there's the major league rugby.
Hmm.
And then above that, there's the national team. Like yesterday, I was refereeing the women of the USA Rugby Eagles are about to play in the World Cup in England this summer. So right now they're in camps finding like their 40-person roster. And so yesterday I was refereeing what was called the possibles versus the probables
Hmm.
match. Um, and I, you know, and but then a week before I was doing like 4 high school games. I'm just giving you the spectrum of
Sure.
all the different leagues that I'm doing. And the whole point is like you're trying to maintain a standard. Rugby, every sport is different. Like, okay, when I go watch basketball games, like I go to SDSU basketball games, I need to go to a UW game and sing the national anthem.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
Uh,
should have you come do both.
I know a guy. I know a guy. um, but point being, when I watch those games, I am appalled at how much the referees get yelled at. But it's also proximity. Like when you're on
Right.
a field, they set up the field in rugby. There's two things that are very helpful in rugby. One, they set up the field so that people can't be right on the field. Two, there is like rules written that there's the only person that can talk to the referee during a game is the captain of each team. If a coach is yelling at you, if a spectator is yelling at you, and for the most part, I'd say 90% of spectators and anybody in the rugby community, in the rugby culture, they know this. They're like, no, we give respect to the referee. Like, we can't do it. It's a tough job. It's hard enough. There's literally like a line that says like you must respect the referee and only the captain can talk to that person. So
Hmm.
when I watch a
Interesting.
basketball game or a football game and I see just the vitriol coming from every single side of the referee, I'm like, I would never. I would be yelling back at the person, going like you can't talk to me like that. Like that's ridiculous. In rugby, there's a lot higher level of respect. And if that respect, because it happens, because players are under pressure, under tension, they're fatigued, you're not your best self at those times. Coaches as well, and then spectators, they don't really know what's going on, or
Sure.
they just want to yell because whatever they had a bad week or something, and they want to take it out on you. You as a referee are allowed to go like, if you talk anymore, I will ask you to leave the field, and if you don't leave the field, your team will forfeit the game.
Hmm.
That's like
Wow.
you're allowed to do that in rugby.
Wow.
And I've used that a couple of times, and the response is always like, I apologize. You are absolutely right. I will keep my comments to myself. Like that's and I'll say like, look, we and if you I'm not like, and don't talk to me ever. I'm like before the game, after the game, anytime during the week, if you want us to come, go over these laws, if you want to do video review, if you want to get a better understanding of what referees are thinking in the game, we can have those conversations so that you're not yelling at me on Saturday. Like that's a part of the community as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into training and preparing referees and spectators and players for making sure that you don't have to talk to the referee because everybody knows what's going on. When I watch other sports, and recently right now with basketball, and I'm seeing those Tim Donahue interviews and whatnot, I'm like, it's different. Like I wouldn't want to be a part of that. I don't like that at all. Rugby, as a player, I started off in it and I learned so much about the respect of the game and the values of the game. And it's a culture that you love being a part of. And every athletic at the highest level is a culture you want to be a part of. Like it's discipline and there's passion and there's respect and there's teamwork. But I think, at least in my opinion, with a lot of American sports, the referee gets a lot of talking to that is unnecessary and is not helpful.
Yeah. What are you doing to try to manage a game? Because inevitably, I mean, you just said like you might have more of an iron fist in rugby than you have in other sports at your disposal to be able to say like, hey, I can make you forfeit this game. Um, but what I would say is, how are you managing the emotions and maybe the chippiness of, the people participating, whether they're coaches, whether they're players, and that doesn't even always have to be you as the target. It could be other people in the game. Like, what are you trying to do, and how are you taught to manage those sort of situations?
I think because there's not a lot of referees in the United States, not a lot of referees globally in rugby, and I think across all sports, like referee numbers are diminishing. Like sports are growing, referees numbers are diminishing. That gives me an opportunity to know I have job security, but also relationship building, right?
Mm,
Yesterday was the first time I worked with the coach of the women's national team. And a lot of the preparation is before the game. So if the game's on Saturday, you'll have a Monday protocol email where both teams you send out, hello, I'll be the ref. Here are you just go over the details. Here are the game times. What color jerseys are you wearing? But then also there's a question there. Are there any clips, comments, clarifications that you need on the law that your players are working on? Are there any secret plays or, kind of nuances in the law that you're going to try out that you want me to know about and want clarification on so that we can both be prepared for it on Saturday, which is usually a game day. And so having that conversation and building a positive relationship beforehand where you can talk about things like you're allowed to do that in rugby to both coaches and it's an open conversation with the coaches so they both understand like how you're going to call something, what the law asks you to do, what the new law changes are. And that prepares you, right? So preparation beforehand. If you don't get the opportunity to do that, like you get called for a last minute game, referee drops out and you don't get talk. It's just your professionalism on the day, showing up on time, making sure, you just have to be your best self. Like when I show up for a performance or when I show up for a rugby game, I'm trying to be my best self for at least that like 3 hour period. After that, I'll go have a beer. I'll go cuss. I might talk about like the people that I didn't like, but in that moment, I am the person responsible for upholding the standard of the game.
Yeah.
We are all the people, but I have to set the example. Because I don't like to say it like this because I don't like to say I have power with the whistle. So that gets egotistical and referees do that, but it's my responsibility to keep everything safe, flowing right. I've trained in this for decades. I've gotten great training. And so I feel a responsibility to do it correctly. So that's my mentality going in. So when I work for a team for the first time, one, I want to show them my best and make sure that the game flows. But then if I get to work with a team 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, they know me, I know them, and we settle in and the relationship builds positively.
It's great stuff. Alexis Alfaro, will you be my vocal coach? I think you're pretty good at this thing. Maybe you could be other people's vocal coach. You're pretty good.
You know that I'm down to help you out anytime. And I know, and I hope people know this, but you have a beautiful singing voice, great guitar player. We've sung and made songs together before. So anytime.
You're the man. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, thank you, Tony. It's been great.
Thanks to Alexis for his time today. For more great content like what Alexis just gave us, we're going to talk to people for free every single Thursday right here on the PXPU podcast. So please download, subscribe, make sure you leave us a 5-star review so people know we've got a good thing going. Until next time, everybody, have a great call.